The odds of you dying in a roller coaster accident are roughly 1 in 16 million. Significant technological advancements in engineering and heavy safety regulations have made you more susceptible to die in an airplane crash or even be struck by lightning. Even though theme parks are a multi-billion-dollar industry, freak accidents still do occur. Join me, Derek Shadle, as we take a deep dive into the engineering process behind these magnificent machines and investigate the reasons that led up to these rides going off the rails. Schlitterbahn opened in 1979 as a water park located in New Braunfels, Texas. The park saw major success as they were able to bring in massive crowds each year. Over the decades, the park expanded to multiple locations in Texas, such as Galveston, South Padre Island, and eventually Corpus Christi. Schlitterbahn would plan to expand their brand of water parks across the country, so in 2009, Schlitterbahn would open their next water park in Kansas City, Kansas. The park opened with moderate success, as it was losing business to competing water parks nearby. Plus, construction of the park saw major pushbacks and delays, causing most of the rides to be closed on opening day. However, co-owner of Schlitterbahn, Jeff Henry, was quite the competitive businessman who had spent millions of dollars of investments into his water parks in Texas so that they could own the most groundbreaking water park attractions in all of Texas: surf machines, mile-long lazy rivers, and jet-powered water coasters. Jeff wanted to build an attraction that people would travel to across the world to visit, and he wanted to build it in Kansas City. In November 2012, Jeff Henry was attending an amusement park trade show where thousands of theme park corporations and world-class engineers come together. When major theme parks such as Six Flags typically want to build their next groundbreaking attraction, they typically go to these trade shows to propose deals with these ride manufacturers. And Jeff was looking for the perfect manufacturer that would build a world record water slide. And of course, everyone turned Jeff's idea down. But Jeff was determined to build his next world-class attraction, and luckily for him, Travel Channel was at the same conference interviewing theme park owners for their show, Extreme Water Parks. When the show asked Jeff what Schlitterbahn was planning on building, he told them that they were going to build the world's tallest and fastest water slide, and they were going to build it themselves. Henry got to work immediately when he got back from the conference. He enlisted Schlitterbahn's lead designer, John Schuley, as the designer of the water slide. Although John and Jeff both had experience building rides, neither one of them actually had a background in mechanical engineering. But luckily for them, the state of Kansas at the time had a very relaxed ride policy, meaning that they actually didn't need engineering credentials to claim that their ride was safe, nor was the state required to do inspections on the ride. The design process of their water slide was a lot shorter than normal manufacturing processes, which would usually take manufacturers 3 to 6 months to design. But for Jeff and John's team, they designed the water slide in only 5 weeks. The water slide would eventually be announced to the public in November 2013 as Verrückt, which is German for insane. The slide would stand at a whopping 167 feet tall, which is taller than Niagara Falls, and would reach speeds up to 70 miles per hour. The ride would begin at the top of the 167-foot tower, before riders would climb into a 3-person raft before heading down the 60-degree vertical drop that would send them zipping down the slide. So when the raft reached the bottom of the first hill, water jets would blast the raft from behind and send it upwards into another smaller hill. The ride was originally scheduled to open in early May 2014, but technical issues would delay the ride from opening until July of that year. During this time, the ride was suffering from major mechanical issues due to the second hill that utilized massive water jets, as the jets would either not have enough pressure to send the jets over the hill, or they would utilize too much pressure and send the rafts flying off the slide. Obviously, the designers didn't want the public to see the ride operate in such a dangerous state, so they would test the ride right after the park would close, where lifeguards would stick around to watch the water slide launch rafts full of sandbags into the sky. Eventually, they came up with an idea to stop the rafts from flying over. First, lifeguards would weigh the riders before they got on to ensure their raft weighed enough to not only make it over the hill, but not fly off of it at the top. And secondly, to protect riders from flying off the slide itself, they would install a fish net supported by metal beams over the slide to stop anyone from going airborne. However, a safety consultant hired by Schlitterbahn would tell Henry that the ride was too unsafe to open and that they should not allow anyone under the age of 16 to ride. However, on opening day of the water slide, Henry would remove the age limit and would instead have riders sign a waiver before they ride. The ride opened with massive success and drew major crowds to the water park. Riders would spend an entire day waiting in lines to receive their bragging rights for riding. One of those people being 13-year-old me. Yes, actually, I remember spending nearly 6 hours in line to ride. When it was finally my turn, a lifeguard put me on the scale with 2 other random people to see if our group managed to weigh inside of the required weight range. Thankfully for us, we were cleared, so we ascended up the staircase that was taller than the Statue of Liberty itself. When we reached the top, we climbed into the raft and strapped ourselves inside, using Velcro seatbelts. Thankfully for me, my seatbelt surprisingly did not work, and when I alerted the lifeguard about this, he said, "Just hold onto the straps on the side." The gate holding us inside the station opened up, sending us down the 167-foot drop. I honestly can't remember much of the actual ride, not because it only lasted 15 seconds, but because I was seated in the front seat and had water being jetted into my eyes the entire time. When I reached the end of the ride, I opened my eyes to find my sister standing outside of the pool, awaiting to hear my reaction of the ride. However, I rode it back in August of 2014, and the ride operated for nearly 2 years after that, until it would make its last run on August 7th, 2016. Every year in August, Schlitterbahn would hold an elected official day, which allowed the state's elected officials to visit the park for free. And on August 7th, 2016, then Kansas State Representative Scott Schwab would take his family to visit Schlitterbahn. Their son, Caleb, was only 10 years old at the time and got in line to ride Verrückt. After waiting in line and being weighed for the ride, his group failed to meet the weight requirement, but were allowed to ride the ride anyways. The group boarded the raft, and Caleb, being the lightest in the group, sat in the front, and the 2 other older women sat behind him. Again, the group alerted the lifeguards of the non-functional seatbelts, but were told to hold onto the straps, and shortly after, the raft was sent zipping down the first drop. The raft began to climb the second hill at a much faster rate than usual, before the raft was sent airborne, sending Caleb flying into the metal pole supporting the fishnet above him, decapitating him instantly. The raft reached the bottom of the slide with both of the women still inside, but scarred with multiple severe injuries. The park was quickly evacuated, and the ride never opened again. Since Caleb was the son of Kansas Representative Scott Schwab, legal action swiftly followed the accident, putting strict new laws on manufacturing and inspections of all amusement park rides in Kansas. And in November 2018, the water slide would be completely disassembled. Both John and Jeff were charged with second-degree murder and 17 other felonies, but the charges were eventually dismissed because the evidence used against them were dismissed as inadmissible, since they were using clips of the Travel Channel documentary on the water slide as factual evidence. In 2019, Schlitterbahn would sell 2 of its most popular water parks in Texas to its competitor Cedar Fair, and sold the Kansas City location to a housing development which would demolish the park shortly after. Thanks for listening to Off the Rails, an investigative series into different amusement park accidents around the world. Join me next episode as I dig into the infamous Action Park in New Jersey and how it earned the nickname Class Action Park. Until next time, I'm Derek Shadle.